the President of Pakistan, the ceremonial head of state of Pakistan and a figurehead who represents the unity of the Republic. The President holds the legal title de jure and is a civilian commander-in-chief of the Pakistan Armed Forces as per the Constitution of Pakistan. This position places its holder in leadership of the nation, is kept informed by the Prime Minister of Pakistan on all matters of internal and foreign policy as well as on all legislative proposals. Constitution of Pakistan vests the President the powers of the granting pardons, reprieves, and the control of the military. However, all appointments at higher commands of the military must be made by President on a required and necessary on consultation and approval from the Prime Minister. In addition, the Constitution prohibits the President from exercising the authority of running the government. The President is indirectly elected by his Parliament through the Electoral College for a 5-year term. The Constitution required the President to must be a Muslim of not less than 45 years of age. The President resides in an estate in Islamabad known as Iwan-e-Sadr to the First. The current President is Mamnoon Hussain, who was elected on September 9, 2013. The Presidency Role of the President The official residence and principal workplace of the President is the Iwan-e-Sadr Jure, the presidential palace located in the northeast Islamabad. The Presidency forms of the vital institutional organ of state and is part of the bicameral parliament. Powers to exercise the authority are limited to the ceremonial figurehead and required to address the parliament to give a direction national policies before being informed of its key decisions. In addition, the President is also a civil commander-in-chief of the military, with Chairman Joint Chiefs being its chief military advisor to maintain the control of the military. After a thorough confirmation comes from the Prime Minister, the President confirms the judicial appointments at the country's court system. In addition, the Constitution allowed the President to grant pardons, reprieves, and clemency in cases recommended to him by the executive and the judiciary. The President himself has absolute constitutional immunity from criminal and civil proceedings, and no proceedings can be initiated or continued against him during the term of his office. There shall be a President of Pakistan who shall be the head of state and shall represent the unity of the Republic. From 2000 until 2009, the President was the chairman of the National Security Council and had authority control over the nuclear and strategic arsenals. However, the chairmanship and the powers transferred back to Prime Minister. Furthermore, the presidential powers have significantly declined with Pakistan's system reversed to a parliamentary democratic republic. Eligibility and selection process The Constitution of Pakistan sets the principal qualifications that the candidate must meet to be eligible to the office of the President. A President must be a citizen of Pakistan, required to be a Muslim, of 45 years of age and above, qualified to be elected as member of the National Assembly. Whenever the Iwan-e-Sadr becomes vacant, the selection of President is due by the Electoral College, which consisted of both houses of Parliament and the 4 provincial assemblies. The Chief Election Commissioner has to conduct elections to the office of the President in a special session. Voting takes place in secrecy. Each elector casts a different number of votes. The general principle is that the total number of votes cast by members of Parliament equals the total number of votes cast by provincial legislators. Also, legislators from larger states cast more votes than those from smaller provinces. The actual calculation for votes cast by a particular state is calculated by dividing the state's population by numbers of seats, which is divided again by the number of legislators from the state voting in the Electoral College. The Constitution further states that election to the office of President will not be held earlier than 60 days and not later than 30 days before the expiration of the term of the President in office. Election and oath The President is elected indirectly for a term of 5 years. The incumbent President is eligible for re-election to that office, but cannot hold that office for more than 2 consecutive terms. The President is required to make and subscribe in the presence of the Chief Justicia Jure, an oath or affirmation that the President shall protect, preserve and defend the Constitution as follows. Line of succession and removal The Constitution discusses the possibility of an acting President. Certain office holders, however, are permitted to stand as presidential candidates in case of vacancy, as the constitution does not allow for a vice president. The chairman of the Senate of Pakistan, the Speaker of the National Assembly of Pakistan. The president may be removed before the expiry of the term through impeachment. The president can be removed for violation of the Constitution of Pakistan. The impeachment process may start in either of the two houses of the parliament. The House initiates the process by levelling the charges against the president. The charges are contained in a notice that has to be signed by at least by either chairman or the Speaker National Assembly through a two-thirds majority. The notice is sent up to the president and 14 days later, it is taken up for consideration. A resolution to impeach the president has to be passed by the two-thirds majority. The Speaker National Assembly then summons the joint session not earlier than 7 days. The president has the right to defend oneself. If the resolution is passed by the two-thirds majority at the joint session declaring that the president is unfit to hold the office due to incapacity or is guilty of violating the Constitution or of gross misconduct, the president shall cease to hold office immediately on the passing of the resolution. No president has faced impeachment proceedings. However, the proceedings have been used in 2008 in an attempt to impeach former President Pervez Musharraf, who tendered the resignation after the proceedings above were used. Post-presidency = chronological list of presidents with tenure equals Iskandar Mirza, Ayub Khan, Yahya Khan, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, Fazl Ilahi Chaudhry, Muhammad Zia-ul-Haq, Ulam Ishaq Khan, Farooq Lagari, living former presidents. Political background Early origins From 1947 until 1956, the Governor-General had assumed the place of the presidency, which pledged the allegiance to the Queen of Pakistan the Queen Elizabeth II. With the promulgation of first set of constitution which declared independence from the ceremonial monarchy and became Islamic Republic in 1956, the Governor-General was replaced with the presidency. The incumbent Governor-General, Iskandar Ali Mirza, became Pakistan's first president, who reportedly suspended the first set of constitution in 1958. Mirza appointed Army Commander-in-Chief General Ayub Khan as the first Chief Martial Law Administrator, who dismissed Mirza in order to become the president. The second set of the constitution introduced by President Ayub Khan turned the country into a presidential republic with the stipulation of president's direct elections. Succumbed to internal and international pressure, the nationwide presidential election were held in 1965. Facing Fatima Jinnah in the elections, Ayub Khan successfully campaigned for a second term, but some have alleged that elections were rigged in favor of President Ayub Khan. Controversy regarding the U-2 incident, privatization, and war with India. The presidency further weakened in a fierce left-wing opposition led by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto of PPP and nationalist Sheikh Mujibur Rahman with the support of demonstrators. Suffering with paralysis and declining health, Ayub Khan handed over the presidency to Army Chief General Yahya Khan, imposed the martial law and announced to hold nationwide elections in 1970. Eventually, the general elections were held in 1970, which saw PPP in majority in Pakistan and Awami League in East Pakistan. Failing to reaching compromise between PPP and Awami League, President Yahya Khan invited Nurul Amin of Pakistan Muslim League to become the Prime Minister and appointed him as first Vice President. Instigated violence against Pakistanis in East Pakistan invited President Yahya Khan to use force to maintain order in East Pakistan, which further escalated Bengali resistance. Preemptive strikes against India led to another war as Pakistan witnessed the isolation of East Pakistan as Bangladesh. Politically isolated and devastated after the fall of East Pakistan, President Yahya Khan stepped down and ceded power to Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. President Bhutto engaged in a process leading to parliamentary democracy while reducing presidential powers. In 1973, President Bhutto promulgated the Comprehensive Constitution, which reduced the presidential powers and introduced the presidency as figurehead. Past interventions The general elections held in 1977 resulted in an atmosphere of civil unrest instigated by the right-wing alliance, the Pakistan National Alliance. The events leading to it resulted in military intervention by Chief of Army Staff General Zia-ul-Haq and Chairman Joint Chiefs Admiral Muhammad Sharif. Suspending the constitution in 1977, General Zia-ul-Haq took over the presidency in 1978. Zia's presidency oversaw the modern growth of far-right ideas in the country. Succumbed to domestic pressure to restore the constitution, President Zia-ul-Haq held a referendum and called for general elections in 1985. President Zia-ul-Haq appointed Mohammad Junajo as prime minister and assumed more powers through the constitutional amendment. After dismissing Prime Minister Junajo, President Zia-ul-Haq announced to hold new general elections, but President Zia died in a plane crash in 1988. After the general elections held in 1988 witnessed the victory of PPP in 1988 and appointed Chairman Senator Ishaq Khan to the presidency. Conflict between Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto and President Ishaq Khan arose in two areas regarding the issues of appointments. President Ishaq Khan repeatedly intervened in government matters and leveled charges against Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto, thus dismissing Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto in 1990. After hold general elections in 1990, Nawaz Sharif brought up an ideologically conservative government and President Ishaq Khan unsuccessfully tried dismissed Sharif. After a successful intervention by Supreme Court and Chairman Joint Chiefs General Shamim Alam, President Ishaq Khan and Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif tendered resignations in 1993. The new elections held in 1993, Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto established a strong government after appointing loyalist Farooq Ligari to the presidency. However, the corruption charges and the controversial death of Murtaza Bhutto in 1996 resulted President Farooq Ligari to dismissed Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto. In 1997, President Farooq Ligari could not overcome the heavy mandate bestowed the Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif by the public in 1997. President Ligari unsuccessfully supported Chief Justice Sajjad Ali Shah Jure, both of them resigned, ending the conflict between judiciary, the executive, and the parliament. After appointing Rafiq Tara, the parliament successfully passed constitutional amendment to decisively limit the presidency. After staging a controversial self-coup in 1999, General Pervez Musharraf dismissed Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif and President Rafiq Tara in 2001 while assuming more powers to the presidency. In January 2004, the Electoral College elected Musharraf, as a result of which he was, according to the constitution, deemed to be elected. President Musharraf's repeated unconstitutional intervention resulted in a standoff with the judiciary and declared state of emergency in 2007 after dismissing the senior justices of the Supreme Court. Although Musharraf was elected in 2007, the constitutional legality of Musharraf's rule was found dubious. A populist constitutional movement eventually resulted in Musharraf's departure. On August 22, 2008, the Electoral Commission called for presidential nominations to be delivered by August 26, 2008 and for elections on September 6, 2008. Figurehead overview After the presidential election held in 2008, Asif Ali Zardari lobbied for constitutional amendment to restore the constitution as it was in 1973. In 2010, the parliament unanimously and with a large majority, passed the 18th Amendment of the Constitution. It revoked the presidential powers and changed Pakistan from a semi-presidential system of government to a parliamentary republic, with great hopes of governmental stability in the future. On September 9, 2013, Mamnoon Hussain became president. See also, air transports of heads of state and government, official state car, Pakistan, Prime Minister of Pakistan, Chief Justice of Pakistan, Chief Justice of the Federal Shariat Court, Chief of Army Staff of the Pakistan Army, Constitution of Pakistan, Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Finance Minister of Pakistan, Interior Minister of Pakistan, Defense Minister of Pakistan. References. External links, President of Pakistan, official website.